Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I am fast approaching my very first year anniversary here on YouTube, and the very first video I ever posted on my channel was a tie-dyeing video. Please do not go back and watch it. It's a very, very bad video. But to pay homage, I'm gonna be doing another tie-dyeing video, but hopefully elevating it. I'm gonna be doing a tie-dye gown. So on top of it being just a nice homage to my very first video, it's also Pride Month. So I wanted to do something that is rainbow. So this is gonna be a rainbow tie-dyed gown. So I'm super excited for that. For the pattern, I'm gonna be using this Vogue V1697. So just this really pretty gown that's like a bias cut. I'm gonna be doing the shorter version here. So that's the pattern that I'm gonna be using, and then I'm also gonna be using for the fabric this really nice ivory satin. So the tough thing about tie-dye is that you have to use a natural material. So that would be like a silk satin, something that's natural, or else the dye does not stick to it. So I didn't want to go with a pure silk satin just because silk satin's like $50 a yard, but I managed to find this on Etsy, which is a rayon silk combo. So I think it was 30% silk, 70% rayon. Rayon is typically made from like bamboo, so technically it is a natural fiber. So I'm really hoping that my dye is going to stick to this. So this will be my very first foray into using a pattern that is cut on the bias. Should be normal. I don't really know what to expect, so I'm hoping that it's not any more challenging than any other thing would be, but I'm already working with a pretty tough fabric, so we'll see how it goes. It's a combination of a tough fabric and then techniques I've just never used before, so, you know, I'm gonna go into it with an open mind, but that should be a fun and interesting challenge for this particular project. I am going to start by cutting these pieces out. I want to cut them first and then dye them. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cut and prepped, and then we're going to go into the dyeing process. So very typical tie-dye as far as, you know, the process will be really simple, but hopefully because this is more of an elevated cut, it'll be very beautiful. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so all the pieces have been cut out, everything is prepped. I've gone ahead and put on a t-shirt that I don't care about if it gets ruined. Always remember when you're working with tie-dye, you want to wear clothes that you don't mind them getting ruined, because once the dye gets on there, whatever you're wearing, it's toast. So I went ahead and put on just a regular t-shirt. I'm gonna be tie-dyeing indoors, which normally they recommend doing it outside, but I don't have any outdoor space in my apartment. So I have these, I guess they're like chicken skewer, like kebab skewers, and I just have them laid over my sink like a little grate, and that's what I'm gonna use to set my little bundles of fabric on. So that's what I'm gonna use for the tie-dye, and then I have all of my dye colors here. And I'm gonna be doing the traditional swirl pattern. I'm gonna be using just a rubberized spatula. I think that it sticks to the fabric really well. You just kind of twist this around, and that is what kind of gathers the fabric up, and then you use rubber bands to rubber band it together so that it stays in place. Once you have all of your bundles gathered up and rubber banded, they should look something like this. So each of these little sections right here, the little pie pieces, are gonna be where the different colors go. So I did put 4 rubber bands on here just to give me 8 different sections, because I'm going for a rainbow, so I wanna use as many colors as possible. So each color will go in each of these little sections, and that is how you get the swirl. All right, so now that these bad boys have dye on them, they are wrapped up in plastic wrap, and these are just gonna sit overnight. See you tomorrow for the big reveal. All right, so I've got all my little tie-dye bundles here, so let's just start taking these rubber bands off, and we're gonna see how they look. I'm still really scared that this fabric is not going to hang on to the dye, again, because tie-dye requires a natural fiber, and I'm not 100% sure that this is a natural fiber. So yeah. Okay. Oh wow, it's completely saturated. So none of the ivory is left, which is totally okay, but it is a very beautiful rainbow. It didn't really turn out like a spiral. It's just kind of tie-dyed, so that's cool. So that's one piece. I'm thinking that maybe the bigger pieces might still have some of the ivory left, just because they're a little bit thicker. I was kind of nervous that would happen, that it would just all get completely soaked up into the fabric, so I'm not super duper surprised. Okay, this one has a little bit more of the ivory. So that's that piece. Oh, and you can actually see the swirl. Okay, so it looks like a very traditional tie-dye. Here's that piece. Now one of these bigger ones. And I am going to, after I get these all undone, I'm going to just thoroughly rinse them in cold water just to get all the excess dye off. Normally when you tie-dye, you would rinse it and then also machine wash it and dry it. I'm not gonna do that with this fabric just because it's really delicate. Satin will completely unravel. So I am going to just rinse it really well by hand, and then once it's sewn, then I will machine wash it. All right, so here's another piece. Again, a lot more clear spiral, completely soaked in there. That's beautiful. And last one, the big kahuna. I'm curious to see how this turned out. Right. Ooh, wow. All right, and that one has a very distinct swirl on it. Wow, these turned out really pretty. So just, fingers crossed that the dye actually stays in the fabric. And then we'll have ourselves a tie-dye gown. So I'm gonna go ahead and rinse these super well, and then it'll be more of a waiting game. I have to wait for them to dry, and then I can actually start making the dress. So I'm gonna rinse these real quick. All right, so these have been thoroughly rinsed out. I've got them hanging now to dry. The dye seems to be sticking super well, but I won't know for sure until we get it into the washing machine, which I won't be washing this until after it is assembled. So I'm gonna let these chill and dry, and then we'll check in tomorrow and actually start making this. See y'all tomorrow. All right, y'all, so the moment is finally here. We are finally ready to start actually putting this dress together. So I have all of my tie-dye pieces. I did lightly iron them after they dried just because this fabric gets really crinkly. My biggest concern with this pattern, I pre-read through the instructions, and I think it's gonna be fairly straightforward. There's a couple more complicated techniques, like a really tiny rolled hem on the top and the bottom. So that'll probably be the most difficult parts of putting this together, but also, I think what's gonna add the most difficulty to this is just the kind of fabric that this is. Unfortunately, satin's just like one of those fabrics that's it's kind of just tricky to work with. There's just no getting around it because it's so slippery. Luckily, this does have a little bit more of a grit to it because it's not a 100% silk satin. It has another fiber in there which gives it a little bit of grit, which should make it a little bit easier to work with. But I am gonna have to just be patient and take my time with this because as much as satin is difficult to sew, you also can't be super rough with it because then it will start to fall apart from the needle going through it too many times. So I will need to be careful with this. My very first step is going to be finishing the neckline, and then I'm gonna do the top of the back piece, and then the tops and the bottoms will get put together. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the neckline and finish off the back as well. And then I'll jump back in with y'all once we're ready to put the top and the bottom together. A few steps in this pattern called for a super delicate rolled hem, so to accomplish that I started by folding the edge over about a 1/4 inch and then ironing it into place, and then I went back along that same edge and folded it in one more 1/4 inch and then sewed it into place with a straight stitch. All right, so the neckline is finished, and I also finished off the top of the back piece. So basically the way that this pattern is designed is that the front is 2 pieces and the back is 2 pieces. So I need to pin those 2 pieces together. So I'm gonna be pinning the tops to the bottoms, but while I was doing that, I wanted to just chat with y'all since this is a pride-related project and just let y'all know how I identify, talk to y'all about pride a little bit. So I am a cisgendered, straight, unfortunately, woman. So even though I myself am not queer in any way, I mean, I'm a straight cisgendered person, the vast majority of my friends are gay, so gay rights is something that is extremely important to me. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that drag has been a huge influence on my life, and it's like one of my absolute favorite art forms. So that is another really important aspect of my life. And as Pride season becomes more and more commercialized, it's really important to remember that a lot of these big corporations that put a lot of energy behind appearing to be LGBTQ friendly, actually donate money to politicians that actively vote against things that are for the rights of those people. So just keep that in mind during this Pride season, because you're gonna see a ton of advertising that's all geared toward people who are either part of the community or an ally. Just be careful, vet the purchases you're making. There's a lot of stuff out there that's very shady, so just, you know, approach those purchases with that in mind. And remember that we wouldn't have Pride if it was not for trans Black women. So make sure you donate money to a transgender benefiting organization, something like that. Do not forget about the trans community. They are such an important and often forgot about part of the LGBT community. So I just implore you, if you're gonna partake in any sort of Pride festivities and you are just an ally, go out there and educate yourself, learn as much as you possibly can. So of course, have fun and celebrate. That's the whole point of Pride, but also remember that we are celebrating so much more than just, you know, a parade. And enjoy Pride, have fun. After the front and back panels were complete, it was time to pin the front to the back and sew them together with a straight stitch on both sides. And finally, to create the straps for my dress, I started by taking strips of the satin and making it into a bias tape by folding in both sides about 1/4 inch and ironing them into place. And once all the bias tape was ironed, I sewed one edge of the bias tape to the edge of the top with right sides together. And then I flipped the bias tape over to encase the raw edge and sewed it shut with a straight stitch. I cannot believe I was actually able to put that entire dress together in one day. It was not put together at all this morning, and then I had a full dress by the end of the day, which for me is a huge accomplishment. I feel like when I sew stuff, I take forever. So I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back for that one. And before we get to the reveal, I just want to say thank y'all so much for watching this video. I hope it inspired you to make something fun for Pride. And for all my fellow allies out there, everyone who is a part of the LGBTQ community, happy Pride. I hope that it is a fun month for you guys and that you're out there celebrating your individuality, your uniqueness. You are special, you are important. There are people that love you. If you are not able to come out, know that you are so loved, and only do that when you are ready. But when you are, we're ready to embrace you. So everyone have a very safe and happy Pride. Bye y'all.